Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Olipa in case this is the first time you're seeing my video. So for those of you who have been following my channel or even following me on any other platforms for a while, I'm sure you know that I am an avid reader. I have always loved to read from when I was like really young, but surprisingly enough, I have never shared like book recommendations or the books that I've read here on my YouTube channel. So today I thought I will give you some books that have completely changed my perspective on life. I want to mention that a lot of these books are actually fictional books. I mostly read fictional tales and also mostly African stories. So keep that in mind and let's get right into it. Okay, so first things first, these books are not in no particular order, like there's no best to worst. These are just books that really impacted me and stories that I still remember. Like they were so memorable, I still remember them. I'm going to start with the ones that I have in hard copy because I usually read soft copy books. So most of my books are on my phone or on my tablet, on my computer. I only have very few hard copies. So I'm going to start with this one, John Grisham. This is called The Firm, and I loved this book. I don't really read books more than once, but I have read this one twice. I loved the story. I even went ahead and watched the series, which I really loved. One of my favorite characters in it was Donna, the secretary. At some point, I actually even fantasized naming a daughter of mine Donna. I fell in love with her character. Of course, I read this book this book was given to me in 2014. This was a gift to me in 2014, and I read this book 10 years ago. At that time, I was super obsessed with law because obviously, as a child, I had those dreams of being a lawyer and whatnot, and it like really fit into my fantasy of law. But the book and the story itself, mwah, superb. My second very notable book is Tell Me Your Dreams. This one is by Sidney Sheldon. And this one, let me see, can I tell when I got this or when I read it? Okay, no, it doesn't have any dates in it. But I read this probably almost 10 years ago as well. This book was the first time I got exposed to certain mental illnesses. It seems like a horror book, but it really isn't. It exposes mental illness, schizophrenia, split personality disorders, and I was so engrossed in this book. The way that it is written really pulls you in, draws you in. And if you're anything like me and you envision when you're reading, like you literally see yourself in the place, you are part of the characters, you will love this book. It was so great. And after this, I actually went and researched on some of the conditions that were talked about in here, split personality disorder, and I was so fascinated. I think a few years later, when there's a movie that came out which had a character who had split personality, but I don't remember what movie it was. It was a really big movie and we all watched it in cinemas. Maybe it was Venom, I'm not sure. But there was a character who had split personality. When that movie came out, I was so excited to go and watch it because at that point I had such a good understanding of that particular disorder from this book. So I love. The third one that I'm going to tell you guys about is actually by a Zambian author. And I must say that maybe I'm a bit biased because this author is a friend of the family. She's my mother's childhood friend, very good friend. And this one is called Shorn Lambs of the City. You guys, this book is beautiful. Remember I told you before, I don't read books more than once. This one I have read twice. It's a very small book, short novel, but the story is amazing. Actually, I have read two of this lady's books. There's another book which was her first, which she called Deflowered. Just think about it. Deflowered. What do you think it's about? Exactly what you're thinking is what the book is about. And the second one also has the same theme, highlighting sexual abuse, highlighting, ladies, young girls who are going through so much abuse in their families, in their homes, and HIV, STI, all that. Like, a beautiful book. I loved it. Now that I'm done with my hard copies, I'm going to jump right into my soft copies. So I'm going to include pictures here so that you are able to see what kind of books I'm actually talking about. I'm sorry that I don't remember each and every one of the authors' names, right? I don't remember the authors' names, and maybe it's because they're not part of the book. They are not characters in the book, because I always remember the storyline, I remember the point of the book, I remember, the characters' names. Also, I took literature in high school, and obviously as someone who took literature, who loved literature, who understood literature, it was all about analyzing and making sense of what you read. So I usually don't remember the authors' names because they're not part of the book. But I'm going to do, the first one I'm going to get into is 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. You guys, this book had so many twists and turns, and it kept me hooked. This is one of those books that I read without knowing what the outcome is going to be. I couldn't decipher what the end was going to be, and I was so engrossed, so fascinated. It was, I love this book. If anything, whenever I have a time to do it, I think I'll definitely read this book again. I think it's a must read. It's something you guys should look into and find. It's a really, really great book. Another book by an African author, a Nigerian author, not particularly sure who, is called Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? You guys, this book, it touched my heart. It touched my heart. It was so close to home. It was so close to home. Where is your husband? Hey, where is your husband? I related so much with the story, at the same time not relating with the character, right? And I felt so much compassion for this character. I felt so much pity for this character. I was wishing her well the entire time. I think the book is kind of funny. It has some really funny, quirky things that are said. And if you're someone who watches Nigerian movies or enjoys that kind of thing, you will laugh because you will be able to read things and envision how the person is saying it. When someone says, where's your husband now? You can literally envision it, and you're reading it. And it's from this book that I learned to spell a lot of Igbo words that I had never known before, like Ashwebi, or all those things. So I love this book. It was a really great book. Okay, next is Purple Hibiscus. This one is a very popular book in the African literature world. This one, I believe, is done by Chimamanda Ngozi Chimamanda. Yeah, something like that. I believe this is one of her books, Purple Hibiscus. It's a beautiful book, and I haven't read this book in a lot of years. I think I read this book this is 2024. My goodness, 6 years ago maybe, but I still remember the story. And to be honest with you, after I read the story, I wanted to understand why she chose the name or the title of the book as Purple Hibiscus. Because granted, the hibiscus was not really a huge part of the story. Yes, it was in the story. It was just a description of a place, but it was not part of the story. And I wondered why this book was titled Purple Hibiscus. I went ahead and researched on hibiscus, and it is then that I found that hibiscus has got so many great properties for teas and just beautifying your compound, for food. Oh my goodness, I absolutely fell in love with the hibiscus plant right after that. And eventually I had influence on making sure that somebody I love got a tattoo of a hibiscus, because I love this book. It was such a great story. So relatable, even when you've never been through what was going on. It was so relatable, and the way it was written, the perfect. I love this book. So make sure you find this book and read it. Another book that I read, this one I read recently, I think it was last year, Hairdressers of Harare. This one is a Zimbabwean book, and it was the first time that I've ever read a Zimbabwean book, anything from Zimbabwe, Zimbabwean author, and I loved it. I would love to read more. If you have read anything from authors in Zimbabwe, I'd love for you to tell me in the comment section so that I can find the books and read it. This one was very relatable because a lot of the terms, a lot of the things that, like the food, are things that we eat here in Zambia as well. So I could relate on a deeper level when they talked about certain experiences like buses or taxis, moving in town. They were talking about like corruption and the police. It was so relatable because it's just the same. I felt like I was in the place, you know, even when just describing the streets and the potholes and the children who play in the middle of the street and the saloons. It was too relatable. I loved this book. The story, however, has such a twist that it will keep you. That was me reading the book the entire time. Like, oh my God, I need to put this down and digest. This is that book that I had to put down and digest. Like, did that just happen? What did that? What? It kept me in shock. I love that book. The last one actually is a book I also read last year, I believe, or maybe it was at the beginning of this year. I think I read this one at the beginning of this year. That is called Second Class Citizen. This book was not particularly relatable, but I was so empathetic towards the characters. Also, it roused so much emotions in me. It made me feel things. It made me think things. Like, there are actually moments in this book that I was literally physically mad. Like, I wanted to slap somebody because why will you allow these things to happen to you? Why are these things going on? Like, I literally wanted to strangle somebody. It really tapped into my emotions, really spoke to me on such a deeper level, and it really shone a light on some of the traditional practices that we have in Zambia, in Africa. This one's not a Zambian book, by the way, but in Africa, a lot of our traditional practices are very similar. But the way that we carry these on, the way that they transcend borders, the way that they literally enslave us, oh my goodness, it was so emotional and so annoying, but at the same time very satisfying to watch, very satisfying to read. And I say to watch because, like I said in the beginning, when I'm reading books, I really envision if there was a person ever to like be the best director of a movie or a series that turns into a book, or a book that turns into a series, it would be me, because I can really envision things. And I must make mention that is the reason I loved The Firm, the series, because the way the characters are depicted in the book is exactly what it's like in the series. Even the smells are exactly the same. The places are exactly the same. And that is something that I always love to see. I hate it when I read a book and I watch the film or whatever, and it's not connecting. Like, this is not the same thing. I don't get the same feeling. I don't have the same taste in my mouth. I don't see the same things. It just doesn't work out for me. So, yeah. Also, just to mention, from this list of books, one book that I would really love to see as a movie, maybe even a series, because it's like a very detailed story, is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I don't know if it exists. If it does, please let me know. But I would love to see a series of this. And in my mind, I can already imagine who the cast, like the perfect cast exists already. This would be such a great series. Netflix, whoever, please jump on this. We want to watch this. So yeah, that was my last book, but I want to give an honorary mention to a book which is called All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. Because all the men in Lusaka are mad. And then what? All the men in Zambia are mad. I beg, all the men are mad. This one is a compilation of short stories, which was super exciting to read. I laughed the whole book through. I laughed and I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. I related to some. I cried for some. I was angry for some. But the book was so funny. The stories in it were so funny and so relatable that I just had to mention it. I think it's worth an honorary mention. So you guys, those are all the books that I have read which were memorable. These are not all the books I have read. I've read so many other books, but these are the ones that have been memorable, that have stood the test of time. Some of years I've read as long ago as 10 years and I still remember the stories. I still remember what it felt like. I still remember everything, and I really want you guys to go and read them. If you have any other exciting books that you have read that you thought were so memorable, let me know in the comment section and I will make sure I look for them and read them as well. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time.